cinematography lessons that I've learned. So the first one, I want to say, us being filmmakers, we feel like there's a certain level that we will get to and we will feel accomplished and we will feel like there's nothing left to be done and we're living the dream. But I would say now is when you're living the dream. Of course, there's things that you want to do and you aspire to do, like make a feature film or work on bigger productions, but those come and go. There's a lot of things that's in between those big projects or dream projects. I would say those little projects that are in between, that's also part of the dream. We're really fortunate as cinematographer, DP, filmmakers to just make a living with a camera. A lot of filmmakers get to a really great place in their career and still feel like they have so much to accomplish. It's always gonna feel like there's more to accomplish. You have to balance that aspiration and ambition with realizing that you're currently living the dream, because you can pick up a camera and do this for a living. You know, it's gonna be great some points of your career, and in other parts of your career, it's gonna feel like you're not doing what you intend to do or you aspire to do. But all of those ups and downs is part of the dream. You have the freedom to create and you have a camera in your hands and you're making a living. So the second one I wanna talk about is when I wasn't working or I had these low periods, work wasn't coming in and I wasn't touching the camera, I did get a little rusty. I just felt like I forgot a little bit of the muscle memory when it comes to DPing and camera operating. And any creative thing is a muscle that you have to continuously work out to become strong. And when you don't work out for a while, you lose that muscle. You lose that muscle memory, and yeah, you'll get rusty, but I think it's great to understand that, hey, I haven't touched a camera in a month, maybe I should go out and film a personal project or two. That goes into my third point. Reps are extremely important. Just the nature of this industry and being a filmmaker, you're not always gonna be hired onto productions that are doing the most impactful and creative productions. You'll find yourself 80, 90% doing things that aren't as creatively fulfilling, and that's just the nature of the industry. But to flip that perspective is to say what's important is the reps. You have a camera in your hands and you're working, you're staying sharp for these bigger productions when they come around. It's important to get those reps in, especially in the industry where a lot of people aren't working. A lot of people are trying to find jobs. Getting reps sometimes looks like small camera packages. You're pulling out a FX3 on a production where you're doing social media content and vertical content. It's like the projects that you're going to take on is a lot more diverse. You have to pull the good out of the bad. And when I say that, I mean pull the perspective out of these situations and say, at least I'm working and at least I'm moving towards a goal of mine. And you know, there's a saying, you know, slow motion is better than no motion. That's a great way to think about you're working and you're moving in some type of direction. At least you're moving. So my fourth one is cameras aren't that important. Your process is. When they shot the movie, the creator, they used the Sony camera, I think it was the FX3. A lot of creatives and a lot of filmmakers, if they were approached with the opportunity to make a film like the creator, the last thing they would think about is shooting it on a FX3, a Sony camera that a lot of amateurs use. I feel like a lot of amateurs or a lot of filmmakers early in their career, they kind of use the camera as a foundation, thinking about the idea and the vision that you have, and then being open to the slew of cameras that are available that could possibly execute on this vision in the best way possible. It's almost like when you get to a higher level, you flip your way of thinking. Instead of thinking about the tools first, you think about the creative vision, and then you think about, okay, what are the best tools that will help us execute on this vision? Being inspired by gear is also a good thing because it can push you to press record, and it can inspire you to just go out and film just because you're hyped about filming with a camera. Honestly, making a film is already really hard. So anything that can motivate you to just get out and get it done is a good thing. I feel like when you get to a higher level, cameras and the tools that you're using become less of a North Star, or that's less of a driving factor. As a DP, it's your job to think about camera solution and how these tools can execute the vision of the director. I think I was speaking a little more from the director's perspective on thinking about the camera last. But if you're a DP, even as a DP cinematographer, I feel like this applies. You have to really take in the director's vision as your job to think about specific tools that can help execute the vision. You have to be open-minded when it comes to thinking about the tools that you bring on and making decisions in that area. So it's really important to be open and thoughtful, intentional about the execution of the vision, and not be so caught up in gear and thinking about the tools. Smaller and lighter is better. When I say smaller and lighter, of course, I'm not talking about filming with a GoPro or using the camera package that you want to use, but also being really intentional about how can we make it as compact, small, and light so we can keep that mobility and be flexible on set. Productions come with its own set of problems, and having to worry about all these moving parts on the camera rig is, I think it slows you down as a creative, and it's harder to pivot, especially when you have all of these features on the camera, and it just takes a lot more people to even adjust the camera slightly because you have all of the gear and it's just a huge setup. I think my philosophy approaching cinematography is smaller and lighter is better. The most compact, the smallest we can get the camera package is better for me and my style of filmmaking. As a filmmaker, we get these great ideas out of nowhere. You know, we're just hit with these epiphanies and we're like, yo, that would be a really great idea. And I think we shouldn't stop there as directors or filmmakers, because there's a lot of things that have already been done. And like they say, it's nothing new under the sun. Most likely, if you're thinking of an idea, it's been thought about before. When you get those good ideas and those epiphanies, you have to dive deeper and develop them a little more, take an extra 3-4 steps and go deeper on that idea. How can you make that idea even better? A lot of us as creatives, we feel like, you know, we're really smart and we have the greatest ideas, and they come just like that when we think of them and they're ready to go. Most of the time they're not. They need a lot more time to think about and develop. But the great thing is that you got the idea. Number 7, I feel like a lot of people study great work, and I like to say I like to study bad work as well. I like to study people who maybe they're not executing the vision at a high level. I pull a lot of lessons out of that, because a lot of people who are creating bad work, they are openly failing for you to see. You can learn from their mistakes. I think that's extremely valuable. You don't have to go through that. You can really just sit back and observe and feel it didn't land how they thought it would be landing. And you moving forward into your creative projects, you can take that learning. You know, a lot of people feel like, you know, watching the best cinematographer, filmmakers and films, watching them work is the best way to learn. But when you're at that level, your mistakes get a lot more cryptic. You can't really read into the mistakes that they're making. It's harder to read. They make far less mistakes than an amateur, of course. Learning from mistakes from the people who are making them, and they're documenting their mistakes. So number 8 is study great work. And I know I just said you have to study people who aren't doing good work, but on the flip side, it's you do study great work. I think studying people who are doing great things and creating great projects, you can pick up taste and what you like to see. Just like watching someone that is doing bad work, you pick up what you don't want to see. And so on the opposite end, when you watch someone who's doing great work, you understand that looks great, that is tasteful, and that feels right. And I want to do that with my projects. So studying bad work is as important as studying great work. Balance that out and really understand that they're equally important. So when it comes to developing your taste, it's important to understand what you do like and what you don't like. Number 9, I would say take your time, and once you get a camera built out as a DP, camera operator, I know the AC is supposed to, get things right for you as a DP, but lower level productions, you're usually handling it by yourself. I would say once you build it out and you get everything ready to go, just make sure the camera feels balanced in your hand. If it's on a tripod, make sure it's leveled, and make sure the monitor is in a great spot for you. The EVF is looking great. All of the features that you like to use is on your monitor and ready to go. Just make sure that your camera packages are comfortable and customized to how you like it. And that only makes it so much greater for you when you go out and you start shooting, because you're not thinking about the camera and you're in the moment and you're thinking about the images that you're creating. Making sure your camera is really customized and you're familiar and you feel comfortable with your camera setup is really underrated. And a lot of people miss out on that, and they don't take those extra steps before they start shooting and pressing record to make sure they feel comfortable. So number 10, I feel like me being a minimalist in my personal life, I feel like I take that across the board and I incorporate minimalism into my filmmaking. When I'm going out for productions and I'm packing and I'm prepping gear, I want to bring less. That sometimes bites me in the ass because I don't have enough. I would get to a production and I would say, damn, only if I brought those extra filters, because it would be great for this scene right now. And only if I brought that other lens set that I looked at before I left, extra batteries, just everything that we might run by and say, oh, maybe that's not important and I might not need it. I would say double down in the other direction and say, you're going to need it. It's better to be prepared when it comes to filmmaking, because once you get on set, think of the worst case scenario and bring extra gear and tools along. And that doesn't mean that you'll end up using it. I think this falls more on the directing side of things, but reading more. Reading helps the imagination. When you're looking at these words, you have to actively use your imagination to picture what the writer is saying. You're constantly working that muscle of the imagination to add imagery to words. Reading fiction, nonfiction, sci-fi, the newspaper, social media, whatever it is, making sure that you're taking the time to actually read. Reading translates into reading a screenplay. As a DP, you're reading a screenplay and you're adding these images of how and what that would look like quicker. Number 12, this one falls a lot more into the documentary and the indie filmmaking world of things, but our initial reaction when we get into a location, we start thinking about how we're gonna light it. We think about adding a lot of lights. Fewer sources of light sometimes makes things look a lot better, especially when you don't have the resources to add light. Thinking about how I can subtract light helped me as a cinematographer, because put things in perspective when you say, okay, let's add a light here and then add another light here, maybe a kicker and a key and then a backlight. It's like when you start adding more light, the thing is you're adding more problems. Now it's more spill and you have to put more flags and diffusion. It becomes like a snowball effect of problems that you have to solve. Obviously, this is dependent on the situation that you're in. It could be a high-key looking commercial. Obviously, you will want to add a lot more light to make it look more polished and produced. But I'm more speaking about the documentary space or the indie filmmaking space where resources might not be as accessible So you have to go into it with an open mindset of, okay, if we don't have lights, we should take away lights. That way of thinking helped me create better images because I was embracing the natural light. Number 13, I feel like this might be an obvious one, or it might not be so obvious, but study photography. Study photographers and their work. A lot of cinematographers were focused on moving images in multiple frames that we can string together that makes a movie. In photography, they're so focused on this one frame that is telling a story in its whole. They're doing this with one frame, and studying how they can do that, studying their way of thinking, their intentionality with this one frame, pulling that out of their process and putting that on the images that you create as a cinematographer will only make every image that you make as a cinematographer just that much more focused and intentional. And 14, I would say studying architecture. It's important because as filmmakers, we're filming in locations that are gorgeous. And sometimes we wouldn't even understand why these places look so beautiful and why they work for a film. And the architecture understands, the set designer understands that it's because of the layout of the building is why and how it's creating a feeling. It's better to be informed on everything in the image, and that comes with fashion, architecture, color theory, set design, everything that you're pointing your camera at. You should have a general understanding on what it's saying and how it's creating this feeling when you point your camera at it. Number 15 is understand psychology. Again, having a general understanding of something that deals with filmmaking, and that's psychology. What are the things that you're putting in your frame? What is that psychologically saying about your character? What is that projecting to the audience? Having a general or a great understanding about everything that's in your frame and what is it actually saying is important to telling a story and executing on the message that you want to portray. All right, 16, this one's a little unorthodox, but try really hard, have a lot of passion for all of the projects that you're fortunate to be on. And then once it's out, don't care about it at all. Don't try to control the outcome of people's reactions and critiques. Don't have any expectation on how people are going to receive the work you've done. I think you all you can do is focus on how you did your job, the attitude you had while doing your job, how well you executed on the vision, and then put it out. Those are all the things that you can control. Everything outside of that should not affect you, and you should not put so much thought and care onto those things that you can't control, and that's other people's perception, opinions. So care a lot about the process and the product and the projects, but don't put too much energy in caring about what other people think about it. So this one, as a creative, my brain has always struggled with this one, and that's like obsessing over the details. And what I mean by that is obsessing about organization and execution and how you're executing it, how you're communicating to your team and your attitude. All of these are detailed things that in the grand scheme of things, they add up. They're not as flashy, and you're not really promoting these things that, oh, look how organized I am. These are detailed things, but they have a great effect on your work and the final product. Obsessing over details and the non-flashy things that people won't see is as important as the things people will see. Set design is much more important than gear and the cameras that you're using. And I know we've heard that a million times, but that's just a reminder. All of these things that are in front of the camera is much more important than everything else. And that it takes a bigger piece of the pie of creating a film. Fewer quality shots is better than quantity of shots. That might be the minimalistic way of thinking, but simplicity is really hard to do. Going back to, being a photographer and you're thinking about one frame and how can this one frame, if possible, tell the whole story or tell this piece of the story effectively. I kind of embrace that when it comes to that's the quality of the shot. The quality of the shot is it portraying the message and getting across to the audience what I want the audience to know or feel. That's the quality, that's the metric for the quality of the shot. And I think quantity is just like, okay, one shot here and then I need this next frame to tie the first few shots in and then it's cohesive. It's like quantity shots are more like you're not thinking about the execution of the shot. Maybe the camera isn't the exact focal length that will be the best for this shot, or the camera shook a little bit or you didn't move the camera exactly how you wanted to move the camera. I don't know, maybe the actor wasn't on point with the scene and the blocking. Something within the frame you don't feel like it was executed well. I think that's like quantity. You're just like, all right, let's crank out the most of this scene that we can, even if they're like not as good. All right, number 20 is stop obsessing over other cinematographers' work. Oh, I have to know all of the directors that came before me and cinematographers and the filmmakers that came before me, and I have to watch all of their films and I have to do this shot exactly the way they've done it in their career. It's like when you're obsessing over other creatives' process and trying to mimic that, you're boxing yourself in and you're limiting yourself as a creative and the things that you can possibly innovate and push forward. The past is there to reference and not to repeat. All right, so for number 21 is dress like an artist. Dressing like an artist doesn't mean flashy or like a rapper with a huge gold chain. It's like a lot of people who view your art, they want to see you represent your art, your personality, and how you carry yourself. A lot of huge and legendary artists, when you think of them, you can picture what they would be wearing. Fashion is another way of expressing ourselves as an artist, and having your fashion match up to your art and how you express yourself artistically is just another facet of that. I think it's really important to keep that cohesive and express yourself. We all have to put clothes on. As an artist, why not express yourself through the clothes you wear? I find that when you look good, you feel good. Not only that, but you looking like an artist, you feel like an artist. And being an artist is also a mindset. You create from this mindset of freedom as an artist. And that comes with thinking of yourself as an artist. A lot of people who aren't artists, they don't have as much freedom. They can't dress how they want to. They have to wear uniforms and suit and tie, and they just have to be much more conservative. And when people see an artist outside, and they want to see that expression of freedom and expression of that guy is an artist and he's representing his art through the way he dressed and the way he carries himself. And I'm not saying like an artist can't have this minimal, just want to be comfortable type style of dressing, but it's more about how are you being intentional about that and how does that relate to the work that you're creating as an artist. All right, number 22 is pull inspiration from everything. And I think this ties into a lot of my previous points, but you have to pull inspiration from everything, and you can't just pull inspiration from your favorite filmmakers and the work they've done, because most likely they've pulled inspiration outside of the film space, and it was in the nuance and little things that they caught maybe on a train or driving or in the shower or observing life. And it's like they're pulling inspiration out of every little thing that they perceive and observe. So it's like finding inspiration in these little mundane things in life is such a superpower, and it's like a great way to come up with ideas and stay inspired, because life is always happening. So if life is always happening, then you're always pulling inspiration out of it, and in that case, it's fueling you to create. So yeah, it's like an unlimited source of inspiration. So number 23 is go with your instinct a lot more over your technique and your technical ability. As a filmmaker, we can go into a scenario or a scene and we're presented with problems that we can either solve with our technical information or our instinct. And I find myself going into situations and solving the problem more instinctual than with technical ability. I'm not the most technical filmmaker. I don't think I've ever been or resonated with more technical filmmaking. Relying on my instincts has always been something that has benefited me in my work. I don't know, me sharpening that has been more beneficial than, learning, okay, this is the technical thing to do, but what would be the right way to do it instinctually, and what is my gut telling me what feels right in this moment. And 24, I think the last one is carry on. What that means is you'll have a lot of things that feel like roadblocks to your progress, and everything ebb and flows. You're gonna have highs and you're gonna have really low lows where you're not working and you feel like things aren't working out for you. The people who find the most success in this industry are the artists who carry on. They keep going. When you get knocked down, you get up. You get knocked down, you get up, and that builds so much more confidence, and it shows that you're resilient. That's a skill that you have to have in an industry that it's almost built to test you. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you for staying to the end. If you want to see more content, hit subscribe. Also, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm on Instagram. I post a lot of content and my daily life there. Hit me with a like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and yeah, carry on.